Listen to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. Now joined by Mr. William Brad Allis, the freshly minted 50-year-old William Brad Allis. Hello, William.
No, I told you, Mike, I'm 60. That way people actually think I look good for my age.
No, you're 40. That's what I thought. Unless you dispute it, we're going with 40.
That's 50. I'm old man.
All right. Fair enough. Congrats, though. Very cool. All right. Wanted to get into, obviously wanted to talk a little bit about Arizona hoops right now, where they are in the grand scheme of things. I am of the belief that this was actually a very good past weekend for Arizona. Granted, I know that Colorado and Utah did not, they're not ranked. It's not like they're great or anything. But the fact that Arizona was able to take care of business without Azuolas Tubelis playing his vintage game and getting performances from, from other people, I think that's a pretty good thing for the Wildcats right there because they're going to need it at some point.
No, it was important. I think the most important part is you got the 2 wins. You did so relatively easy. I was at, the Colorado game. I think it finished at 10. So I think if you had that 12-point spread, you weren't happy. But they were always seemed to be up after that, going down 10 initially. 12-16 for most of that game. Again, they did it playing very small at times. At one point, I think they had Henderson at the 5. They threw out that little bit of that zone. And against Utah, a team who beat them, they were really never challenged. So
right.
That's kind of what you're looking for. You don't need 30 and 40-point wins. They'd be great, no doubt about it. But this is the time of year, unless you're playing really UCLA or USC, you don't want single-digit grinded out wins either, because you do want to coast, for lack of a better word. I would have liked to see Visar and I'm not even sure play. I'm not even sure he or Ball played. If not, they didn't play much against Colorado, only because again you want to preserve those minutes down the stretch. But they have a week off as well, so now you get ASU this weekend. But you get a week to, I think as Tommy Lloyd said, to work on yourself, not necessarily work on anyone else.
Right, for sure. And let's talk about, I want to talk a little bit about Courtney Ramey first. We talked about him a little bit yesterday. I like what I'm seeing out of Ramey right now because Kerr Kriisa, while very good, it's not, I would say, a next level. I don't want to say not a next level distributor because he's leading the conference in assists, but Courtney Ramey at that position right now, every single game you look at, he's getting 5 assists. He's getting 6 assists. He's getting 4 assists. He's become a much more well-rounded player for the Cats, and that's something that I think they need to just take pressure off of Kerr.
Yeah, and I think the thing that he does particularly well is the obvious assist.
Right.
Kerr will make some really spectacular plays, but he also makes some bad turnovers. I don't feel like Ramey as often makes the bad. He'll commit turnovers, but they're usually more defensive plays than they are, throw it into the third row because you're trying to lob it up to someone. So again, I think that's just the difference in their games. Kerr is a more feast or famine type of guy, whereas Ramey's just a little more consistent. I think that's kind of one reason we said he's kind of a rich man's Justin Kier. Kier was very steady, and for the most part, except for some of the streak shooting. Ramey's a more consistent presence than Kriisa, but he also doesn't necessarily have, unless he is knocking down 7 or 8 threes, the highs that Kriisa has, especially as a distributor.
Yes, for sure. All right, now let's talk about up front then a little bit, and then going forward. You got ASU coming to town. We've talked about this all year. I think Arizona's big thing, and Schuster mentioned this a while back, that you want to get the #1 seed. If you can beat ASU and if you can sweep the LA schools, I think you're pretty much locked in at that 1 seed right there. Because I think with the other way teams are losing, having that UCLA win on front of you as well, at that point, Brad, I think that's a hard thing to argue.
Yeah, what we learned at least this weekend was right now, as of this moment, the NCAA committee is putting a premium on quality wins and not knocking you for, I don't even say bad, mediocre losses. Suddenly Washington State's not as bad a loss as it was 3 weeks ago. So if Arizona can, again, win out, that means another win over US or UCLA, another win over a likely tournament team in USC. I don't think USC's, obviously great. But that's what we're looking at for trying to get that 1 seed. Is it guaranteed? No. I think you still probably have to at least get to the finals of the Pac-12 tournament. I don't necessarily know if you have to win. I think going 2-1 against, assuming you lose to UCLA, might be enough to get it for you. But yeah, you probably need to win 5 of your last 6, kind of rounding out the year here.
Right. And UCLA is very, very good, but I think it's a team that we watched before, and I think Arizona matches up pretty well with UCLA, to be honest with you. Again, if UCLA were to go far in the tournament, it would not surprise me. But this is also, I think, where you need to get a Julius Tabelis back on track, and the same thing with Umar Ballo, because this is the kind of game where I think you need to have both those dudes dominate.
Yeah, they just don't have the height that Arizona has, and Arizona is slightly more athletic.
Right.
UCLA is a little more physical. So again, it becomes that kind of battle, and it's odd because UCLA is a really good team, but they're not as good as Houston doing almost the exact same thing.
Right.
Because Houston is a little more athletic across the board. They're a little longer. UCLA may have some more dynamic scorers if they get hot, who ironically enough didn't when Arizona played them. But yeah, it's weird because in a weird way, it's a bad matchup for both teams, and whoever can exert their will. And last time it was Arizona exerting their will.
Right. And so watching Arizona, though, basically you're at a 7-man rotation right now. Tommy Lloyd is about to break the record for most wins in 2 seasons. We're going to get to that next. But I watched that, though. I would really like one more. And again, I'd really like to see Arizona have one more one more player in that rotation, because 7 still feels a little thin to me.
What I'd like to see Lloyd do is boost the rotation up against ASU in the Pac-12 tournament. And then if you need to reel the rotation back in for the NCAA tournament, at least you've got potentially 3 of the next 5, 4 of the next 6, where you're going with an 8-9-man rotation. And then again, if you have to reel it back, because we've seen that before. We've seen Luke go with 8 and 9-man rotations, and all of a sudden they get to the tournament, it's a 7-man rotation. We saw Miller do that a few times. So I think that's probably more likely. You hope you can get out early on ASU, play those young guys some more. You hope you can, you maybe even do it in one against the USC. The first 2 rounds potentially of the Pac-12 tournament, especially that first night, where
Right.
Although you're going to probably be playing a team you lost to, it's also a team you've probably gotten revenge against.
Right.
And then you hope if you're a 1 or 2 seed, you're coasting in that first round game. And then maybe potentially coasting in the second round game if you're making the deep run. But I don't necessarily want to see because he hasn't so far and it's been successful. I love 8 and 9-man rotations, but what I would like to see is expand the rotation where applicable, and then when you need to reel it back, you are able to do that. But if you have to dip in, let's say you have some foul trouble in the first round, second round. Let's say, Larson turns an ankle and you got to turn the ball. They also haven't not played in a month, that they've gotten some meaningful minutes again against ASU, against, let's say it's Stanford in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament. Let's say it's against, Harvard or whoever the 15 seed is or the 16 seed. That they've gotten some quality minutes, so they're not coming in completely cold from not having played much down the stretch.
Right. All right. Now, 2 things that are getting a little bit cold right here. 4 Peaks, the official brew of PHNX Sports. Now, again, you're always going to get cold brew from 4 Peaks, but at the the U of A guys are not playing as much now, so they're getting a little cold as well. But again, check out 4 Peaks. My guy KB Thiel got me onto the kilt lifter right there. If you know right there, Cody. But again, check it out. Show notes and the link in the description. They're also at the Tap and Bottle watch parties and OGs. The official, you can basically get OGs at any of your dispensaries. Got to be 21 and up. And indicas, sativas, you name it, they got it. Great flavors, great tastes. Again, any of your local dispensaries, it's good for sleep. It's good for helping out. all, or it's good for feeling cool, all of that stuff. So again, check it out right there. Oh, geez. All right. Tommy Lloyd is about to break Bill Guthrie's record for most wins in a first 2 years. And it doesn't feel, honestly, like we're talking about it enough. I know everybody knows it, but it doesn't feel, Brad, like we're talking about it enough.
No, in a weird way, because of the success last year, suddenly Tommy Lloyd overlooked. He didn't make the Naismith coaching list. Why? Again, do I expect him to win it 2 years in a row? No, you never do almost. But what has he not done that Cronin has? He lost more than Cronin did. He's won more than Cronin. And again, I'm not going to say Cronin doesn't deserve to be on that list. To me, I think it should be a two-man race between Rodney Terry and Jerome Tang. I mean, I think those two guys have done the best jobs considering the obstacles that they faced with what Kansas State basically turning over their entire roster and obviously what's gone on at Texas. But, Lloyd lost three NBA draft picks, 2 first-round draft picks, a key senior, and, he's in contention for the number 1 seed again.
Right. And it seems like, too, that we're just kind of taking it for granted again. Like I said, I didn't think that Arizona would be this good. I thought they'd be good last year, but not like they were. He's drastically outperformed expectations each season.
Just think about this. I don't want to say he's replacing a legend. I don't think we can call Sean Miller a legend.
Right.
But he is replacing an extremely successful coach. And having great success with, now granted, a lot of the players Sean Miller brought in, but not a lot of 5-star talent.
Right.
In essence, you could argue, although I think in hindsight we will look at the talent there, that he's doing more with less than Shire has. And I think Shire's done a good job. Certainly better than, Hubert Davis has, even though Davis had the run. They haven't been very good in regular season. So I think, in many ways, it's not being seen as tough a job because Miller did bring in Kerr and he did bring in, Tabellis and Glacier, Coloco and Matherin. But the fact is, they haven't missed a beat. I mean, they have a couple more bad losses this year, but people are also ignoring how many good wins that they have this year.
Right.
I think they have the most over ranked teams, and they're like 3rd or 4th in quad 1 wins.
Right.
And I know some of the Big 12 teams are starting to pull away with that because they're beating each other. But realistically, if you look at what Arizona's done, Tennessee, everyone's raving about what Tennessee did, and rightfully so. They went to Bama and won. Arizona beat Tennessee.
Right.
So, I think they are overlooking him to an extent. But you know what? We saw that with a lot of great coaches get overlooked when they don't have the hype machine. Lute was one. I saw one of these lists of all-time greatest coaches, and someone's like, why is Mike Montgomery on this list? Because Mike Montgomery is a damn good basketball coach who won at Stanford. He didn't win a national championship. He took Stanford to the Final Four. What has Stanford done since he left?
Right.
Not much. So again, but Mike Montgomery never had the hype train around him. He doesn't have, ESPN bending over backwards like they did for K. And again, you can argue Coach K is the greatest coach of all time, but he has the hype train behind him. As much as I like Izzo, Izzo's perception may be slightly better than the results. Again, I love Izzo, so but I think being in the Pac-12 hurts. Being on those late night West Coast games hurt. Being mild-mannered kind of hurts because I think, when you had Miller being more fiery, a lot of times it draws more eyes on you.
Right. And I think Tommy Lloyd's actually all right with that when you think about it. At the end of the day, he's, that's okay. I think the player development too, and Ricky Garrett gets to this point right here, I think is great. The player development under Tommy Lloyd, I think, is next level compared to what it was previously. You look at these guys and how they've improved year in and year out. Coloco and Terry, obviously great examples there, Ricky. But just look at Umar Ballo. Again, when Umar Ballo came in, I thought he was going to be kind of a Gene Edgerson type. I thought he would be kind of a guy that comes in, throws some elbows, a little bit of roster, and good practice player, and that's essentially it. But what he's been able to do, though, I think from player development perspective has been fantastic.
Yeah, I think Miller gets criticized a little unjustly for his player development, but it wasn't his strength either.
Right.
I'm not going to pretend to tell you John Miller great, but he wasn't awful, but he wasn't great.
Right.
Wasn't a guy who could, for every Solomon Hill and Gabe York, there were plenty of Alonzo Triers who never got better.
Right.
One of the things that Tommy Lloyd was known for was a development guy. Ricardo Foy was known as a development guy. I don't know if that was Steve Robinson's reputation, but you know what? Carolina did not bring in the 5 stars that Duke and Kentucky did, or even Kansas did.
Right.
They had a lot of 3 and 4 year guys who just got better and better and better. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume some of that was Steve Robinson. So when you built your staff around player development and you can get international guys who are patient, good things can happen. Bala was a 5-star or a high 4-star, depending on what service you like, because of his raw athletic ability.
Right.
Took him 3 years to get there, 4 years to get there. He's gotten there. Look at how much better, especially over the course of a season, Pelle Larsson gets. I'm going to be very anxious to see where guys like Ball and Visar and Anderson and Philly B are 2-3 years from now. Because right now not looking great. But again, we're so used to I'm not playing right now. I'm got to leave.
Right.
Culture.
There is no progression. There's no just natural. Yes, exactly.
Yes. And usually you get one of two things. A guy who rarely do you get anymore in college basketball, especially a place like Arizona under Miller. And at the end of the Lute era is like this. So this is not a bash on Miller, where a guy comes in, sits as a freshman, plays spot minutes as a sophomore, rotation player. Gabe York was one of the few. You either get, for the lack of, even though I know he wasn't going to say recruited by me, you get Brendan Lavenders of the world. Just the guys who by the end of their career they're in the rotation, but they're just kind of happy to be there.
Right.
Or you get Justin Simon, who's like, oh, I'm not starting right away, I'm gone. Here you're getting that again. My expectation is next year, if he stays, Adama Ball is probably a rotational guy. My expectation is Vesar is a starter if their room is clear ahead of him, if those two guys come up. But if not, he's 25 minutes a game. So I think, again, that is how this program, for the most part, is being built. Yes, you're going to bring in the occasional 5-star who's probably a one and done. But you bring in one of those guys, maybe 2. But more likely what you do is you either try to find the odd, and there project 5 stars, i.e. Umar Ballo, Kylan Boswell, and then you bring in those mid-level 4 stars, high 4 stars, but who are not, Dylan Anderson. He was 4-star, but he was 120?
Right, for sure. So you're a low-end 4-star at that point.
Exactly. Who you come in knowing this is how we're doing it in Arizona. Guess who else does that very well? Gonzaga. Guess who else has done that over the years? North Carolina. Even
who's remarkable at it? Who's remarkable at it is Bill Self. You look at what he does. Yeah. Most of his rosters, and again, he gets McDonald's kids. Not saying he doesn't, but almost all those guys are top 30 to 100 players that he builds it on. You just look at his guards. Frank Mason was the National Player of the Year. He was ranked 118th in his class. Then you look at
5-year guy, right?
4-year guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you look at a Devontae Graham, another first-team All-American, a guy who was ranked, who was committed to Appalachian State before Kansas. Now you look at DeJuan Harris. It's going to be an All-American this year, the 94th rated guy. They have a very good way. He has a very good way of doing things like that. And, honestly, I think that you can win like that, and I think that that's very much of a loot type way of going about things. Get a couple elite kids in there, but also have your guys that you develop, because I think the roster development, the player development from guys like Self, guys like Tommy Lloyd is next level.
Yeah, and I think Self is a guy who reinvented himself a little bit. He brought in,
pardon the pun, reinvented himself.
Yeah, you're not going to get the Jay-Z reference today because I'm out of Jay-Z reference. I'm not a big hip hop guy, so,
right.
So apologies. at least not modern hip hop. But yeah, you will get a pun that was unintentional. But I'm 50 now. I get to make these jokes. So yeah, but yeah, you see a reinvention. You see a reliance on, again, really talented players, but maybe guys who aren't NBA lottery guys right away.
Right.
And, Miller tried to do that a little bit too. And, ironically enough, I don't think he thought Matherin, Koloko, and Dalen Terry were quick to bail guys. I mean, I think Terry was seen as a 4-year guy. I think Koloko was seen as a total project. They're just so wildly athletic that they were able to leave early.
All right. Now, Tap and Bottle, the watch parties. We're going to have one not this week, but the coming week here. We'd love to see you down there. Tap and Bottle downtown. And as you know, Scott and Rebecca do a great job. 4 Peaks many times there as well. Come down there, yell at the screen. We can have a lot of a great time. Good people show up right there. Scott and Rebecca, again, awesome people. Tap and Bottle downtown. We'd love to see you down there. We will be putting that out there shortly. And Illegal Pete's. Now listen, high energy places you want to go to have fun. Illegal Pete's. You can go to the one in Tempe, or you can go to the one in Tucson. You name it, they've got it. Good food, good drink, good scenery, good lively environments. Illegal Pete's on University. Check it out. For both, check out the show notes and the link in the description. All right, I wanted to move to a little bit of Arizona football. It's going to be a little bit shorter show today. William's got the kids. I got a doctor's appointment. I'm not feeling great. So I was looking at this last night, Brad. Is this about as deep a skill position across the board as we've seen at Arizona in quite some time? You got Jane Delore at quarterback. Then you got Noah Fafita. Then you got Braden Dorman. Then at running back, you've got Michael Wiley, Jonah Coleman, DJ Williams. At wide receiver, we already know what you got. Then at tight end, you got Tanner McLaughlin, Kean Burnett. I can't remember Arizona being this loaded in quite a while at those skill positions, maybe since 98.
There might, it's tough. I would say maybe you went deeper during the Stoops era, but the high end wasn't as high. There were times Stoops might have 6 receivers, but none of them were a number 1. Or, a number 1 was like Mike Thomas, who, again, had his limitations. But, yeah, I think when you look at, Cowling and you look at, T-Mac, that's a legit as good as anyone in the nation really 1-2 punch.
Right.
With maybe the exception of whatever, just because Ohio State and Alabama seem to have 95 receivers who are first rounders. Right. But, running back is a good group. Again, is there a star there? Maybe not. Although Wiley put up some big numbers, had some big runs last year. Yeah, the 1-2 punch at tight end is probably I'm going to go back to the 80s when they had 2 French NFL tight ends and Mark Keel and I forget who the other one was back in the day. But yeah, so you look at that. Fafita has proven that he can at least play at this level. Obviously, Jaden Delara looked really good last year. Dorman's got potential. But again, with the quarterback position, I mean, how many times, Stoops a few times had 4 4-stars on the roster and one of them would be good. Right. But yeah, so I think if you look at the skill position is good enough to win in the Pac-12. The question now is, can you fill those holes on the offensive line? Can you get Morgan back healthy in time? Can you find a few guys to shore up some spots? And if you can, this was already a good offense, but I think you're still going to need it to take a spot up in terms of offensive productions because you're going to get into some more shootouts.
Right. And I think that's where you got to go into this year. If you're Arizona, I think you've got to go into this year knowing that, hopefully the defense gets a little bit better, but you got to expect to be able to score in the mid-30s, I think, pretty much game in and game out.
And again, how many times last year did Arizona score in the 30s and lose?
Right.
I think it was 3 or 4.
Right.
So while I need the defense to be better, I don't know how much better it can really be. Obviously, if you give up 49 3 times, what they get 49 3 times, 4 times? I can't remember now.
Right.
You need to be better, but you're going to have to win shootouts. And that's just A, the way modern college football is, and B, the Pac-12 is, and C, the way Arizona's built. But yeah, it's finding that combination of, can you add 2 scores a game to the, whether that's, 10 points a game, 14 points a game, and conversely, knock down the average by about 2 scores a game, then Arizona's suddenly a nice team. Are they a national championship contender? No, but are they a bowl team who's maybe playing for a better bowl than we expect, yeah.
All right. Now, real quick. Octane Raceway Mavericks. Let's say you're like Brad and you got the kids. You're thinking to yourself, man, what should we do this weekend? I'd like to go up to do something fun. Octane Raceway Mavericks up in Scottsdale has it. You got racing. You got video games. You got good food and drink for the kids. Again, pretty cool place up there. Worth the trip. There's a reason that everybody's going up there. Everything you really need, they've got it. Check out the show notes and the link in the description. Great stuff. Octane Raceway Mavericks. Great stuff in Scottsdale. Check out the show notes and the link in the description. And Mountain Mike's Pizza. Again, I am not Mountain Mike. Some people think I am. They are wrong. Mountain Mike is much cooler than I am. He is at Oracle in Wetmore. You can go there. You can get pizza. You can get drink. You can get good food. You name it, they got it. And many times at the Tap and Bottle watch parties, they will be there as well. So, again, check it out, Mountain Mike's Pizza. All right, Brad, a little bit of a shorter show today. I know you got to go get the kids. I'm not feeling the greatest. We're going to sign off. But everybody on there, appreciate all your comments. I'm going to try to get feeling a little bit better. We got Cedric Henderson Sr. coming on tomorrow, ex-NBA player, talk about his kid and all of that. But, Brad, appreciate you as always, my guy. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Mike.
All right. For Brad Alice, I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.